Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play the entirety of this video without any interruptions, and then I'll go back and talk about things that are going on to explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
911, what is your emergency?
There's an active shooter on 2nd and Marion. I am not hurt. I don't know if there are people that are.
Can you see this person?
I did see him, but I fled the area because he was actively shooting into the street that I was driving on.
Okay, can you give me a description of this male?
Yes, he was white with a black cap, a black zip-up hoodie, I believe. It may have been a normal hoodie. He was on the north side of Marion in the red brick building staircase thing that's there. I can't think of what it's called.
What corner was it that you said he was on Marion?
He was between 1st and 2nd on Marion.
Seattle Police! We're at 31, we're on scene. We have one detained right now. Hey! Seattle Police!
So that's somebody else. I got another police out there.
Hold the air, hold the air.
You know,
Stop!
you
Stop here.
understand me?
200 block of Marion. We have one detained on the north side of the street. One is proned out right now. Standing by for units.
Please do not move! Do not! Hands up! Go away! Please do not!
Hey, back up, you two! You two, back up! Get out!
Back up! Please do not! Hey! Drop the fucking gun! Put it down! Drop the weapon! Put it down! Put your hands up! Hands up! Seattle Police!
Yep.
Put your hands up!
Drop it now!
Drop it! Don't do it! Don't!
Hey, don't do it, bud! Don't do it!
No.
No.
Less lethal.
Don't do it!
do it!
Put it down now!
I'm gonna tase him. I can get him from here.
No, you can't get over here. Seattle Police! Put it down now!
Drop the weapon!
Mary 31, he's trying to shoot himself in the head now.
Stop!
Seattle Police, put it down! Put it down now!
I got the car.
Mary 31, he's trying to shoot himself in the head now. He's trying to shoot himself in the head.
Put it down now!
You have to be...
Don't do it!
Put your hands up!
Okay. So this is happening on March 5th. At time of recording, it is March 8th. So obviously there's not a lot of information available. And by the time you, the viewer, see this, it is probably going to be end of March or beginning of April when you actually get to see this video. So there could be more information available to read by the time you get to view it. But for me, at time of recording, there's just not a whole lot to go off of. And these videos have been coming in heavy. So I've got a big queue of videos already scheduled to be released, and I've got some more that I haven't even put on queue yet. But I will try to find some information. I thought it had listed the name of, there we go, Henry M. Jackson Federal Building. Sometimes I can't talk when I'm on here. Henry M. Jackson Federal Building. It's a 37, according to Wikipedia, it is a 37-story U.S. federal government skyscraper in downtown Seattle. Located on the block bounded by Marion and Madison Streets and 1st and 2nd Avenues, the building was completed in 1974 and won the Honor Award of the American Institute of Architects in 1976. It received its current name after the death of U.S. Senator Henry M. Jackson in 1983. Oh, that's nice. What the hell is it used for? The largest occupant of the building is a regional office of the Internal Revenue Service, alongside the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs and the 13th U.S. Coast Guard District. It formerly served as a courthouse for the U.S. District Court of Western District of Washington. Okay, not much else to say there. Let's look up shooting, see what's in the news for this event. U.S. News, 7 hours ago, Seattle Times. All right, so this is March 8th, 2022 at 1:45 p.m. David Gutman. Before he crashed his pickup truck into the federal office building in downtown Seattle, before he fired a rifle seemingly at random, before he was fatally shot by Seattle police officers, William Michael Stevens scrawled in permanent marker all over his garage door about how there was a plot to kill him. Stevens of Bellevue was moving toward officers with a rifle when he was shot and killed, according to body-worn camera footage released by Seattle police Tuesday. But in recent weeks, Bellevue police and others who knew him had become alarmed by his spiraling mental health crisis, court records show. He was identified Tuesday as William Michael Stevens, 39, by the King County Medical Examiner's Office, which determined he died from multiple gunshot wounds. According to a neighbor in court records, Stephen went by Mike. Stevens' mental health appeared to deteriorate significantly in the last several months, to the extent that 5 days before he was killed, a Bellevue police officer filed a petition seeking an extreme risk protection order that would have barred Stevens from buying or possessing firearms, court records show. Why do I have the feeling this is going to lead into some type of anti-gun spill? In recent weeks, Bellevue police and social workers, along with Stevens' former attorney and psychiatrist, were gravely concerned by his deteriorating mental state, but were unable to stop him from driving to downtown Seattle on Saturday night and instigating an armed confrontation with police. According to the video released by Seattle police, when officers arrived, their reports After reports of gunfire, the man, dressed in coveralls, appears to be lying on his back on the ground with a rifle at his side. He is just outside the garage door at the federal office building on 1st Avenue in Yesler. Multiple officers surround him, both at street level and from a staircase above. They repeatedly identify themselves as Seattle police, and there are multiple calls to drop your weapon and don't do it. You want me to tase him? I can get him from here, one officer says. No, you can't get him from here, another responds. He's trying to shoot himself in the head now, one officer says. The man stands up, appears to pick up the rifle, and begins moving towards officers. He is then hit by a barrage of shots. Seattle Police Department's Forced Investigations Team, which responds to all shootings by Seattle officers, is investigating the shooting and has not yet released additional information. A roll-up garage door leading into the federal building's loading dock was damaged, along with a security camera and an emergency generator. Christy Chedester, a spokeswoman for U.S. General Services Administration, which manages the building, said in an email. There were also numerous bullet strikes around the loading dock and nearby area by the driveway on the southeast side of the property, she wrote. Chedester could not provide a damage estimate or timeline for when repairs would be completed. Stevens appeared to believe he was being threatened by the Brazilian mafia, his ex-wife, and his ex-pastor, and the evidence of their conspiracy was contained in social media posts, according to the ERPO petition filed in King County Superior Court on February 28th. A court commissioner signed a temporary ERPO order the same day, but a police officer who attempted to serve Stevens with a court order on March 1 was apparently unable to locate him, the records show. Police had been called to Stevens' Bellevue house at least twice in the preceding months, once in January and again in February 15. Both times he tried to explain to officers about a plot to kill him, according to the reports. On January 29, officers wrote they tried to offer mental health services, but Stevens refused, insisting his case needed to be taken to the FBI. He never threatened others, they wrote, and did not meet the criteria for involuntary commitment. On February 15, Stevens again called police to his house. Again, he said he did not want to harm himself or others and declined offers of mental health care. Police referred his case to Bellevue Fire Cares, a city service where staff members, including social workers, seek to help people with needs that may not merit a 911 call or a fire or police response. Staff at CARES, or Citizen Advocates for Referral and Education Services, called Stevens 2 days later but got a full voicemail. 3 days after that, they visited his home, but he wasn't there. 2 days before Bellevue, police asked for the protection order. Stevens' former psychiatrist, in a witness statement, wrote that he believed Stevens' behavior was of grave concern. His concerns, the psychiatrist wrote, were for both Stevens and his ex-wife. Mr. Stevens is suffering a very serious delusion and rapid mental health decompensation and deterioration. The psychiatrist wrote, I have treated individuals over the course of 44 years with behaviors such as this, which may have the potential to manifest in violence. I believe that Mr. Stevens' condition is very dangerous. At his 5-bedroom home on a quiet Bellevue cul-de-sac, Stevens scrawled words and sentences in black and blue permanent marker across the garage and front door. It's unclear whether Stevens had a specific mental health diagnosis, but the words and phrases suggest the person who wrote them was struggling with paranoia. I need protective custody, one says. 3 red lights equals compromised home. Flash 1 headlight for signaling. Bellevue police scared of truth. Only believe mafia. Several of the messages appear to threaten Stevens' ex-wife. Stevens was arrested for 4th-degree domestic assault violence in 2020. The ERPO petition for the protection order says Bellevue police believed Stevens poses a significant danger in the near future of injuring himself or others if he has a firearm. Stevens has had recent contacts with police in the last month, the order says, and appears to be in a declining mental state. It says he had recently obtained a concealed pistol license and tried to purchase a gun at Wade's gun shop in Bellevue earlier in February. Wade's declined to sell him a gun, the petition says, after he expressed concerns about a mafia plot to kill him. The petition notes concerns that Stevens might have been in the process of trying to buy a gun from another dealer. Both Stevens' former psychiatrist and his attorney believed he was delusional, according to statements including in the petition. The attorney said he was trying to convince Stevens to check himself into a mental health facility, the document says. One of Stevens' neighbors, who asked not to be named to protect his privacy, said he noticed a change in his friend about 4 months ago when he said Stevens began dating a woman online who lives in Brazil. Stevens began to believe he was in danger, the neighbor said. He closed down his landscaping business, sold most of his possessions, and began sleeping in the attic and the crawl space, the neighbor said. His Facebook page is peppered with incoherent posts about a cult, murder plots, and the mafia. Really quickly, he became super paranoid. He kept asking people what to do. What do I got to? I'm sorry. Who do I go to? There's watchers all over the place. The neighbor had been letting Stevens sleep in his camping trailer in his driveway. Early Saturday evening, the neighbor said Stevens asked if he could sleep in the neighbor's garage. When I turned him down, he went out and jumped in his truck and took off, about 6:30, the neighbor said. The first 911 calls from downtown Seattle Saturday night came in about 90 minutes later. Seattle Times news researcher Miyoko Wolf contributed to this story. Man, I bet that neighbor feels... well, I mean, who knows? I'm sure that neighbor probably feels bad about that. So 90 minutes after he told him he couldn't sleep there, this guy took off and then did this thing. So, yeah, I'd imagine the neighbor probably thought about that. I'm not saying the neighbor's wrong in any way or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want some crazy son of a bitch sleep in my garage either. So, yeah, I mean, the neighbor did nothing wrong. But, you know, humans have this this thing for what ifs and having guilt trips, you know, like, oh, if I would have done this, you know, this wouldn't have happened. If I could have done it this way, you know, maybe this wouldn't have happened, or whatever. Like, humans do that all the time, especially when death is involved. Everyone just, their mind goes into overdrive. So, this guy had some legit mental health issues. Legit. And, this country has a lot of mental health issues, and I've slightly talked about it before. Haven't gone into a whole lot of detail or in-depth talks about mental health, but it is a problem in this country, and I don't think that there is any realistic approach and fix to it, not with the way our current laws are. So, the video I did with the teenage girl, I think it was Fulkerson Police. The victim's name was Hannah Williams, and she was like 17 years old and had mental health issues, suicidal. I know I talked a bit on mental health on that video, and I know there's some other ones I've done them on, but that was the most recent one I recorded that I can remember off the top of my head. So, when you think about mental health in this country, although there are mental health professionals and there's hotlines and stuff like that, fixing the brain is not the same as fixing a broken arm or putting a Band-Aid on a cut. Physical damage is quite easy. If you cut your arm, well, all you gotta do is put a bandage on it and make sure, it's cleaned out and, there's no stuff in there. Irrigate it. Depending on the size of the cut, if it's a little, scrape or whatever, you just, clean it out and put a Band-Aid over it and it'll heal on its own. If it's a bigger cut, same kind of process, but usually, you go to a doctor or something like that and then they'll, put staples in it or sew it shut and it heals on its own. Pretty simple fix. When it comes to mental health, there really is no easy fixes for that. Like, you just can't put a mental Band-Aid on someone and it work. For kids, for minors, teenagers, mental health services can actually, I guess, in a way, be more effective because they don't have jobs. Like, they're not having to work 40 hours a week or anything like that. So they can have the luxury of going to a psychiatrist X amount of times a week. And they don't really have a whole lot of stressors in life like adults do. Now, they do have other stressors that I think are worsened by technology, worsened by social media. But they can have a lot of resources, not just a lot of resources available to them, but they have the luxury of taking on those resources. When you hit adulthood and you have to become self-reliant, i.e. no longer living with mom and dad, shit changes. It changes a lot. If you miss too much work, well, bad things can happen, especially if you're not making that good of money. Now, if you're lower class to middle class, you have to work. Like, you've got to put in X amount of hours a week to survive. And employers aren't always very accommodating, especially when it comes to things like FMLA. So, for one, FMLA, you have to be working for an employer for a year before you're even eligible to qualify for FMLA, and your employer has to have X amount of employees. So if it's a very, very small business, then you're shit out of luck there, because they're not required to do anything FMLA-wise. But the good thing about very, very small businesses is usually there's more down-to-earth kind of stuff going on there. But on that same token, business decisions have to be made. If you got someone who can't be there for a whole month and it's a small business, you ain't got a whole lot of people there, and that one person's going to be gone for a month. I mean, if that's your only person who's welding parts and stuff like that, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. You can't keep that spot open for that person because they're not going to be there because you don't have anyone else to fill it. You got to hire someone. So I can understand why small businesses don't have to be forced to follow that. But when it comes to big companies like Walmart and Kroger and Lowe's and Home Depot and state governments and county and city governments, whatever, they've got enough people. They really do. They got enough people to cover the work. They got enough supervisors who can actually, step out of their office and do some work instead of sitting on their ass all day. So FMLA would be able to work in a sense in that way. But employers oftentimes screw with people who try to take FMLA, especially if they try to take intermittent FMLA. So there's two types of FMLA. One FMLA you can take off for basically a long period of time, like maternity leave. Or you had some kind of surgery or whatnot, and you need to take some FMLA. One of your parents became ill, and you take care of them. multitude of different things. You can take off, I forget how many weeks it is. It's like 12 weeks or something like that. So, if you needed to take a month off to take care of your dad because he was going to the nursing home or something like that, you could do that. Intermittent FMLA, but it's for a time frame. So like March 1st until April 10th, you're on FMLA. Well, intermittent FMLA is basically as needed when you have episodic flare-ups. That's a take it any time. There is no prescribed dates for that. It is yearly, literally on a year basis. So from January 1 to December 31, you can take off anytime you want without prior notice, in the middle of shift, whatever, whenever you have an episodic flare-up. Employers hate that. Oh my God, they hate that shit. Because they can't control that. They can't force you to go to the doctor and furnish a doctor's note every time. So that's a tactic that a lot of companies use, a lot of government agencies use. If you call in sick, they will often say, well, you need to bring a doctor's note. And that's a hassle. Like, why would you want to go get a doctor's note if you know it's probably food poisoning, you ate something and you're puking your guts up and you're not feeling good? Why are you going to waste your time going to the doctor, wasting that copay when you don't feel good, right? But some employers require you to go do that, or you'll be written up, or you'll get an unexcused absence without pay. And so it's a hassle. It really is. With intermittent FMLA, you don't have to produce a doctor's note. All you have to tell them is you're having an episodic flare-up. You can just walk out in the middle of shift. Or you just call in like, hey, I can't come in. I'm having an episodic flare-up. They can't do a damn thing about it. In some states, what they can do is just make up a bogus reason to fire you over that. And that ends up happening to some people. But, if you're an adult and you're working for, some company like Walmart, something like that, and you have some mental health issues, you've been there for over a year, you can take FMLA. But FMLA is not paid leave. So if you only have, 20 sick hours or something, you can use those 20 sick hours if you want. But beyond that, if you don't have any more sick hours left, because you've used a bunch of sick hours to go to the doctor or what have you, some places will let you use your vacation time when you're on FMLA. Some won't. But FMLA just secures your job. It doesn't actually give you a paycheck or a payment when you actually take off. So, with that being said, mental health is not something that you just put a Band-Aid on. You have to go see someone multiple times, therapy sessions, things like that. People with depression and anxiety and stuff like that. The intermittent FMLA is good for them, but at the same time, they got, big mortgage payment, big rent, all these other, right now, fuel. Right now, the fuel is getting high, so it's time of recording, March 8th. Last time I filled up was like $4.99 a gallon. So, stupid expensive. So, right now, it's very expensive for people to be going to work, and then rent is out the ass in a lot of places. And if you're lower class to middle class, how are you going to afford to take a bunch of days off work to go see a psychiatrist, to take a day off because of severe depression or anxiety? It's not realistic. It is not realistic at all. People are having to basically live to work in a sense, because some things are just so damn expensive. Rent, for a lot of people is just insane. A mortgage payment for a house can be, like $700-800, but rent at an apartment, a small janky apartment, is like freaking $1,200 in some places. And the people who've been living in places like that and paying that kind of rent for a year or so or more, because they got bad credit, they can't go buy a house because bad credit, and they might default on their payments. But yet they've been paying $1,200 a fucking month for an apartment for the last 3 years. Tell me what kind of fucking sense that makes. So financially, it's just not viable for a lot of people to get the real mental health treatment that they need or that they want, because they have to work. They have to work to be able to afford their expensive apartment, their expensive living conditions. And some people do live beyond their means. They do go, splurge on stuff. But rent really eats it up. And right now the cost of living is going up, and employers are not paying a whole lot. So low pay and high prices for stuff. I mean, you tell me, how is this person going to go to a psychiatrist when they have a lot of mental issues? And when you get to a certain age and you're in retirement, you only have a fixed income, you only get so much a month. Yeah, you got a free schedule, but I mean, how you gonna pay to go to the doctor all the time? It's just an unrealistic thing for a lot of people. People higher upper class, yeah, I mean, all classes of people are plagued by mental health issues, but the rich can, they can more leisurely go to psychiatrists and get really good drugs and be drugged up and be calm and cool and mellow and not have a whole lot of stuff bother them. And probably fare a little bit better than the poor and middle class folks. People always want to talk about mental health. Yeah, we do need some better mental health, but it's not just the only thing that can be focused on. How are they going to get to the doctor if they're being held hostage by their employer, who will fire their ass if they take too many days off? And how can they take that risk of not making enough money and then getting behind on their expensive rent and expensive groceries and right now expensive gas? So there has to be some other measures taken to help ease that burden. I do believe there needs to be some laws established that put a control on rent. There's just it is fucking robbery, in my opinion, how some of these apartment complexes and apartments will charge $1,200 a month for rent, $1,000 a month for rent for a tiny little ass apartment. No, that's insane. That is insane. That's robbery. That's wrong. So some of the financial burdens on people have to be lifted or eased in a way. And there has to be some employee protection rights out there. When a person has FMLA and their employer ends up firing them for some other reason, there's not much that person can do. It is extremely difficult to prove that your employer didn't fire you because you have FMLA. Very hard to prove. And it happens a lot. Happens a lot. So there needs to be some better protections in place for people. Some laws that will address those kind of things and give employers, or employees rather, better employee protection rights. I don't have all the full answers, but I know that what we're doing right now, it's not feasible. It doesn't work. If I came down with some severe depression tomorrow, it's just unrealistic for me to be able to go to a psychiatrist on a regular basis and still do other things that I need to be doing. It's just not realistic at all. Anyway, moving forward from the mental health stuff. So they talked in the article about the guy had went and got a some type of pistol license. I can't remember if they said concealed carry license. A really long article, so I'm not going to go back and try to find that thing. But they had mentioned some type of weapon permit or something like that, and that he was trying to buy a gun from a gun store, but they declined to sell to him because he was talking about a plot from the mafia trying to kill him or something like that. And so instead he's got this rifle. I don't see it. Oh well, whatever. I'm just going to call this a Mosin. So that's a big round. What I do know about it is it fires 7.62 by 54. That's a hell of a round. A lot of people here in the U.S. will actually use this as a hunting rifle. This cartridge would definitely, for sure, go through the police's soft armor. Hell, it might even go through the front panel, go through the body, and come out the back panel. I mean, it is depending on what kind of ammo was in it. I mean, it's a hell of a round. It really is. The sling that he has fashioned onto it, no idea if he put it on there, if someone else had it on there like that, and he bought it like this. That's an interesting setup. It's not the best thing in the world, but I guess it works. And no information on how he got this. He could have done a private to private transaction where he bought it from someone, saw it on, online somewhere, or found it at a pawn shop or something like that. Who knows? I have no idea how this guy came into contact with this thing, but he came into contact with it, and it's a unique weapon. You don't often see people with bolt action rifles. When you when you mention bolt action rifles, I think of the Texas tower shooter. I forgot his name. He went into the observatory tower and started shooting people. I think of people like that, Lee Harvey Oswald. Dudes who know what they're doing. There's a saying, a phrase, that guy's bolt action crazy. Like, they're crazy enough to go shooting people, but they're dangerous enough to be extremely dangerous with a bolt action. Very lethal. So it's a rather uncommon and unexpected to see someone just whip out a bolt action and just start firing it randomly. So this must have been a last-ditch effort for him to get his hands on a gun, and it was the only one he could get, and he went with it. You can tell that the guy really had no intentions, it looked like, of just shooting other regular people, because he shoots the sidewalk area and he just fires it into the air. So we're lucky that he decided not to start shooting at actual people, because if it would have hit someone, it'd kill them. So he's firing into the air. Well, imagine how loud this thing is in a city street. So he's done expended his rounds. Now
911, what is your emergency?
There's an act.
So now he's reloading it. It's a slower process, obviously, because it's got that fixed internal magazine with it. So he's still firing in the air. And he's having to do another reload. And you'll see him shoot the sidewalk here in a second. But all these vehicles, let's back it up some more. All these vehicles you could have been shooting at, and there's people right down there too that you can see in this camera view. You actually see them start to kind of walk around the corner here, right here, upper right corner. You'll see these people emerge from the street corner there. One's got a red jacket on. Can't see what the other is. If this guy was, motivated and wanting to shoot random people, he could have very easily popped their asses from where he was. He could have very easily popped these vehicles as they went by. So that's good that he did not have that intention, because if he did, those people, if he fired and shot one of them, they'd be dead. Like there'd be no saving them if he got a good chest hit on them. I mean, they would just, there'd be nothing you could do for them. So this is an obvious, very, very obvious suicide by police. Now, the police responding, they don't get to see this, right? Like, they're responding to the call. All they know is 911 calls, active shooter, person shooting. They don't get to see this footage and see that this guy's just shooting in the air. And even then, they know that he's shooting in the air, that's not going to change their response in any way. They're still going to have to respond the same way, but there's no knowledge going into it of, this guy's just shooting guns in the air. Maybe we can approach this differently. I don't know of what kind of different approach could have been done. So we have an officer running up here, and no weapon-mounted light on the gun whatsoever. I hate seeing this, especially for officers working night shift. If you work nights, you need to have a weapon-mounted light. There's just no questions about it. You need to have a weapon-mounted light. In my personal opinion, I believe that all guns should have weapon-mounted lights, even for daytime guys. You work day shift, you still need a weapon-mounted light. You could still be going into a building and going into a part of a building with no windows and it's dark, or going into a subterranean part of a building with no windows and no ambient light coming in. Yes, you may have a flashlight that you can use, but it's a lot better when you have a weapon-mounted light to be able to fight with if you need to fight. This officer has a rifle. This one has a pistol. And when you look at the other ones, they have pistols. So it almost looks as though this is the only officer who got out with a rifle. What's that mean? This is the only officer with a good mindset. If you know you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle. If you know that you're going to a call involving gunplay where a person has fired their gun, then you should recognize that you could be involved in a gunfight. Bring a rifle. See this too many freaking times. Officers responding to calls involving gunplay and violence, and they only get out with a pistol. The pistol is not meant to respond to calls like that. The pistol is meant to be able to carry around on a daily basis and it not be super uncomfortable or inconvenient for you, but it be comfortable and convenient for you so that you carry it all the time, and in an emergency, something that evolves rapidly without warning, you can pull it out and use it to defend yourself. Because it's not comfortable or convenient to carry a rifle around all damn day. If you've ever worn a rifle for more than an hour, you will understand what I'm talking about. Wearing a rifle for more than an hour sucks. Like, it's not comfortable at all. And it's not convenient. Like, it's just cumbersome and gets in the way, and your shoulder, your neck eventually start hurting from the sling, and etc. Like, it's not comfortable. Pistols, on the other hand, super comfortable. You can carry one on your side 8, 10, 12, 16 hours of the day, and it don't really bother you much. Hell, you might even forget you got it on you. But rifle cartridges outperform pistol cartridges every day of the week. No contest. And as I said, the only reason we carry pistols is because they're comfortable and convenient, and you can wear them all damn day. The other reason is because we're not getting in gunfights every single day. Now, you may, be watching my channel and notice I have a lot of officer-involved shooting videos, and that one comes out, for the most part, every day. But that's looking at stuff from a zoomed out perspective, like looking at the map of the U.S. all across, coast to coast. Of course, there's going to be, at that level, a lot of shootings. But when you zoom it in and you go into a very specific area, one city, you're not seeing police get involved in shootouts every single day. There are many, many officers and agencies out there that have gone a very, very long time without experiencing an officer-involved shooting. Lots of agencies who, it's been years, if not decades, since they've had an officer-involved shooting. There's officers who go their entire career and never have to shoot anyone. That's common. And because that's common, there's no need for officers to carry rifles on them every single day. Rifles are for sure gunfights. Like, you're about to get into a gunfight, or you're going to a call where there is a gunfight going on. That's what rifles are for. Handguns are for rapidly evolving situations that you have no pre-warning about, and it's used purely for spur-of-the-moment defensive purposes. It should not be your go-to choice when responding to an incident where there's another armed assailant. It should be, in that role, a backup gun to your rifle in the event your rifle goes down or you run out of ammo for your rifle. If you've watched this channel long enough and you've watched other videos like this long enough, studied terminal ballistics enough, you will know that pistol caliber ammunition is pretty weak. And there are people who get shot multiple times with a pistol and they still stay in the fight, and it does not immediately incapacitate them. One of the videos I did, pretty close to this one, out of Orange County, California. The Asian woman, Sunshine Camille Salak, her case, she got shot a few times with a pistol, and she got shot in the face. Like a round went in through her chin and hit her jaw, and then she got shot in her arms and her abdomen. She was still standing, and she but when she lowered her hand with the gun in it, she raised it back up after being shot. She was shot multiple times with a pistol, shot in the face, and still stayed in the fight, because pistol ammunition fucking sucks. It wasn't until a rifle round hit her that she went down. And I would argue that first volley of gunfire, if a rifle round had hit her in the chin, she'd be out. Like, she'd be done. Because of the kinetic energy that rifle projectiles dump into targets. I mean, it's just devastating. And that's why rifles are preferred. You get faster incapacitation with a rifle cartridge than you do a pistol. So this officer does the right thing getting a rifle out. The other officers who run up to this with pistols, bad. Turn the volume up some.
Hey, back up, you two, back up, yeah.
So I guess this is the Federal Buildings Security, and they're telling them to back up. I don't know if this is a private security company or if these are federal law enforcement security. I know that obviously, like the Treasury buildings and stuff, they actually have federal police there guarding the place. Other federal buildings will have federal police, but then some federal buildings will just hire like local private security. So I don't know which one this guy is, but if he's a federal police, well, that federal police could tell this city cop to fuck off and have every statutory authority to be able to say that. Obviously, if he's private security, that's a little bit of a different story, so to speak. But he gets them out of the way and decides to go up there. There's a whole lot of more space up here, right? Like, there's more steps and everything. Why couldn't he have just gone up there? I don't think that tactically it would have been a very good idea to distract someone on the line like this when they have sights on target. He could have presented a very dangerous situation for them when he had to turn and look to see who's yelling at him, and then that guy with the rifle decided to aim the rifle up top, fire around, and pop this guy on the back of the head. So, not the biggest fan of that. You know, if people got their guns pointed at someone, go ahead and let them keep their guns pointed at someone. The more guns you got pointed at a bad guy, the better. Like, who cares if this guy's private security or not? And you still brought a pistol to a gunfight, dumbass. At least this officer over here has a weapon-mounted light. I'm not even sure if he has a weapon-mounted light or not.
Hey! Drop the fucking gun! Put it down! Drop the weapon! Hey! Don't do it, bud! Don't do it! No. Don't do it! Put it down now! No, you can't get him from here.
So he has an X2, and at most he should have a 25-foot cartridge. That's well longer than 25 feet. There's no way that he would be able to hit him with that cartridge, and he should have known that. Like, he should know that this guy is out of his engagement range with that particular weapon. There's just no way that green cartridge is going to reach this guy. And I kind of doubt that he has a longer range cartridge in it. It's just unlikely. So the fact that he even pulled it out and thought that he could even, like, there's just no way. There's no way that from this distance to here you're going to get cartridges to hit. It's impossible. So that tells me there's a training issue with this guy. Like, he don't understand the engagement distance with this weapon and its limitations. So this guy definitely needs some remedial training with the taser itself to know that, hey, you can't shoot targets this far out with standard 25-foot cartridges. Now, if he had the extended cartridges in there for longer distances, maybe. If you had the Taser 7 with the other long cartridge in it, it's a possibility. It's not a guarantee, but it's a possibility he could have made contact with it. At this distance, the only effective or more viable, less than lethal options would be impact munitions, something like 12 gauge beanbag or 37 or 40 millimeter launchers, a pepper ball gun. Those things. Those are only things that would be able to be effective at this distance. I really wish that Axon would revisit the 12 gauge X-Rep, the 12 gauge taser cartridge. That thing was pretty cool. It had a lot of potential, I believed. But for whatever reason, it didn't live very long, and they kind of scrapped it, and they don't produce it anymore. But I really wish they would revisit that, because I think that with the technology now, I think they could make a really great product, and it's in an era now where people are shouting for less lethal options. And if they just put the resources into it, I think they could make a really great 12 gauge taser munition that would be super effective, better than their original. As far as anything else, I mean, there's not much else you could do less lethal from this distance. It's basically going to be 12 gauge beanbag, or the 37 or 40 millimeter launchers, or a pepper ball gun. That's it. There are some taser cartridges that have a longer engagement distance on them, but again, as you know, with tasers, they're not always effective, and you have to consider the fact that this guy had coveralls on. Coveralls are kind of thick, so even if they had the proper cartridge to engage at that distance, the probes probably would not have been able to fully penetrate that and make contact with the skin. And it would have just been like a lot of other videos with taser deployments. You hear the loud cackle, and nothing happens to the person because there's no NMI being achieved.
Seattle Police! Put it down now! Drop the weapon!
Mary 31, he's trying to shoot himself in the head now.
So they mentioned that he's trying to shoot himself in the head.
Seattle Police, put it down!
And as soon as this car pulls in, he gets up. It is difficult to see, but if you pay attention to the ground right here, it looks like you see some bullet strikes right here. So that could have come from one of these officers here, or it could have come from one of them up top. No idea. Misses do occur in gunfights. And this is not me saying that this is acceptable or anything like that. This is merely an explanation into why there are misses in gunfights. So when you look at your typical firearms training on the range, officers and regular people, regular people go through firearms training too. The student is on the line in golf course kind of conditions. They're comfortable, not any stress, no fear of the paper target trying to kill them or anything like that. And they get to stand there and draw, get a good sight picture, squeeze off rounds, and put the gun back in and assess their target. Very cool, calm, collective state, right? No fear of that paper target trying to kill you. Nothing to get your adrenaline dump going like crazy. So although you may have people who are really good marksmen in traditional firearms training, when it comes to real life scenarios, they're not all that great because someone is trying to kill them and they're having a huge adrenaline dump. And when you're also dealing with pistols that have a short barrel, the tiniest amount of movement in the system can cause rounds to miss very widely. There's less points of contact on the pistol. It's just not as accurate under stress as it is in cool, calm, collective target shooting. And this is another reason why rifles are better. Not only are rifles cartridges more effective from a terminal ballistic standpoint, it's also more accurate. You have a longer barrel and you have more points of contact on that weapon, making it more stable and more accurate. When it comes to firearms training across this nation for law enforcement, is way different and all across the nation, coast to coast. Everyone does something kind of different. A lot of it's the same. Some of them are almost mirror-like images of each other, but I mean, it's no one is exactly the same. It's different all across the board. When officers get hired, they go to the academy and they get a block of instruction with firearms: pistol, shotgun, rifle. And that block of instruction can be several days long, and they fire several thousand rounds. That is probably, arguably, some of the best firearms training many officers in this nation are ever going to get from their agency or from their government. Beyond that, they will likely never see the intensity of that instruction ever again. They're not going to have the opportunity for their department to send them to a class that is several days long and they get to fire hundreds, if not a couple thousand rounds of ammo. The only place most of them are going to get that is at the academy. Now, you do have some officers, who go for, SWAT or whatever, and they get to go to another class, and it could be a week-long course, and they get to do, lots of shooting, etc. Some agencies may, depending on their budgets and stuff like that, be able to do some extra similar training in-house or go the commercial route. But for the most part, many officers across this nation don't ever get to see training with firearms like they did in the academy. It's cost prohibitive. It's too expensive for agencies to be able to do that. So at most, what they do is they do little segments of it. So they might one quarter do some firearms training, but they don't nearly fire as many rounds as they did at the academy, but they do some of the same stuff. And they may one quarter do rifles, and then another quarter do shotgun. Or they may do it on an annual basis. And then also, at a bare minimum, there is a qualification course once a year for agencies. Some agencies can do more. They can do 4 qualifications a year. Some do 2. But qualifications is not training. It's just a qualification. Qualification typically consists of a target on a typical shooting range, and it consists of a target set out, and you, the shooter, fire at it from various distances, anywhere from 10 to 10 to 20 yards, and do it from a standing, kneeling, and maybe a prone position, and also do it your traditional 2-handed grip, 1-handed dominant grip, and 1-handed non-dominant grip, and maybe throw in a couple reloads here and there. Not timed. There's no shoot, no shoot scenarios in it. No scenarios whatsoever. You just stand at the 10-yard line, fire some rounds, go back, fire some more, etc. And that's it. And it's pass or fail at that point, depending on the scoring of it. Not that intensive. It's just a qualification to show that, hey, you can put these rounds in this human-shaped target enough times to say pass. Agencies are mostly poor, so they can't afford to do a whole lot of firearms training with officers. And like anything else, firearms skills are perishable skills. You lose your touch after time goes on and you don't practice a whole lot. If you ever learned how to tie special knots, like figure 8 knots or anything like that, or tying a knot for your tie, for your wardrobe, a necktie. If you learn how to do it, watch the video and you was able to do it a couple times, but you didn't wear a necktie for months after that, chances are you probably forgot how to do it, and you had to go look at another video again to figure out how to do it. Same thing with the knots, figure 8 knots. You may have learned it, but because you didn't do enough repetitions to have it ingrained in your muscle memory, it went away. And the same is true with firearms training. So if you went through one of my classes, or you went to another commercial firearms school and you took a 2-day class of pistol, whatever you want to call it, combative pistol, tactical pistol, fighting pistol, whatever kind of name you want to tie to it, a class where you learn how to fight with a handgun. If you go through a 2-day class and you shoot, well over 500 rounds, that last day of class at the end, that will be the best you'll ever be with a pistol. And you can be shooting a tight group. I mean super tight. You could be putting rounds in a target the size of a $50. From that point forward, if you don't practice any, if you don't train anymore, your skills degrade. You will go from being able to put rounds in a $50 size target to a few months later, you're struggling to keep your rounds in something about the shape of a softball. And then as time progresses, you'll start to notice those rounds are getting a little bit wider. So you have to keep up with those skills. They are perishable. They do degrade over time. And you can keep yourself fresh with that with practice and additional training. As I said, agencies are poor. They can't afford to let every single officer in their department go fire hundreds of rounds every month. They can't afford to take people off the street every month. There's just not enough officers out there. Every single agency right now is hurting for people. I don't think anyone can name any agency right now who's like, yep, we got enough people. We don't need to hire anymore. Everyone is struggling. So aside from the cost of ammo being prohibitive and not being able to do it, it's also the logistics of it. There's just not enough officers to cover the shifts to send these other officers to the range and practice and fire these hundreds of rounds once a month or once every 2 months. And even if you did have enough officers, it's the overtime involved. Now you're having to have different officers come in to work this shift, to have these officers work, or you got to take these officers and have them go shoot at the end of their shift. Now they're staying over. Now this is overtime. The person teaching, etc. So there's a lot of money involved in training, and agencies just don't have a lot of money. And especially for agencies who've been screwed over by the woke liberal left and got defunded. If they didn't have enough money to begin with, then when they got defunded, they sure as shit ain't got no money to go do effective training. And even for the agencies that do have a lot of good money, they're still struggling. And lots of agencies out there don't have a lot of good money. Lots of agencies out there are pretty damn poor. There's actually quite a few agencies out there where officers have to buy their own equipment to come to work. There's some officers who have to buy their own vests, their own belts, their own guns. So those are some explanations on why you see misses and gunfights when it comes to police and citizens. Of course, citizens, obviously, they don't have an agency they work for. They work for some company and they buy their own stuff, and then they got to go train and practice on their own. And some of them, they don't go train. I mean, they might go take a concealed carry class, and that is not training at all. So there's a lot of people who aren't even taught proper techniques and skills. And then you've got some out there who are actually more squared away than most police are. And you'd be surprised by that. You'd be surprised about how many, just regular dudes, like computer nerds and radiologists and chiropractors and factory workers and electricians, just regular dudes and girls who spend their own money to go to commercial firearms training classes and have invested lots of time, money, sweat, and blood into this quote-unquote martial art of self-defense with a firearm. They devote as much time to it as some people devote as much time into something like karate or kung fu or taekwondo, Krav Maga, jiu-jitsu, whatever. And these people are squared away. Squared away. You'd be surprised about how many IT specialists there are who've got not just the skill set, but the freaking hardware to rival a SWAT team. It's there's some squared away IT nerds with fucking silencers and night vision and the training to whoop ass. And they will outperform any cop on the street any day. But you gotta have money for that, right? You gotta have money to get the skills. And unfortunately, police just aren't well funded. And even for the officers who want to go do this on their own, there's not that many who do this on their own. It's a very small percentage of officers who actually pay out of pocket for their own classes. And those officers are making their police salary pay, which is not all that great. And they can struggle to make make those ends meet. But they'll go out and do it. But it's very far and few between that do that. There's actually a lot of cops who aren't even gun people. There are a lot of cops who the only reason they have a gun is because their employer gave it to them, and it's kind of a condition of their employment that they have to carry it. If it weren't for that, they wouldn't carry a gun. I guarantee you, there is a number of cops in this country that if you told them, hey, you don't have to carry your gun, you can leave it at home, you can give it back. There would be some who would. They would actually give it back. Why those people are in police work, I don't know. But there are people who are like that, and they never touched a gun before they became the police. They barely made it through firearms training. They just made that bare minimum requirement, and they will never go practice on their own. Now, obviously, I don't know each individual officer here and what their background and training is like or anything like that, but when you look at those factors, it's a multitude of different things that go into why you see misses during gunfights. But those are some explanations on why it happens. Again, it's not an excuse saying, hey, this is okay, just expect it, eat it. It's just an explanation of how it happens.
I got the car.
Everyone, he's trying to shoot himself in the head now.
He's trying to shoot himself in the head.
What are you doing now? What are you doing now?
You have to
So it looks like a twig lands on the hood of the car. And there are some trees right here, so I don't know where that twig came from. I don't know if it fell from a tree or it was on the ground and it got hit and went flying in the air and just landed like this, or around ricocheted and hit the tree and something fell. I don't know. It obviously came from somewhere. But anyway, pay attention to him.
head.
What are you doing now?
He's trying to shoot himself in the head.
What are you doing now?
He's trying to shoot himself in the head.
What are you doing now?
I personally think that he went down so fast, not because all these other pistols were shooting him, but because that rifle was on him. The officer with the rifle. I think that's why this guy went down as fast as he did. If all of them had pistols, I don't think that he would have went down as fast as he did. I think that officer's rifle did the trick. It incapacitated him the way a rifle does.
He's trying to shoot himself in the head.
What are you doing now?
You have to
What are you doing now?
You have to himself in the head.
What are you doing now?
Himself in the head.
What are you doing now?
Shoot himself in the head.
You can even see someone up in this corner, and then you can obviously tell that these officers are up in this corner too.
What are you doing now?
You have to
Don't do it! What the hell is that?
Back this up some more.
Don't do it! What the hell is that? Back up, YouTube! YouTube, back up! Get out!
So, and it's hard to see, but this officer's grip on their gun, it is not the greatest.
Hey! Drop the fucking gun!
there's a lot of space in between the quote unquote the beaver tail section of the frame and the web of the hand in between the thumb and forefinger. You should have a high and tight grip on a handgun, and that's way too much space right there. So at the very beginning, we see this large gap, and then when the shooting happens, you can still see that relatively large looking gap in the back there. It's still present, and then when they shoot, like that is a lot of movement in the gun, a lot of recoil. So that could be, some of the misses coming from this person. Definitely think this person probably missed some. So we don't see any medical care being rendered to this guy. I really don't think that it would have made a difference if they did render medical aid to this guy. I think that officer with the rifle got a center of mass hit with his rifle cartridge, and obviously all the other pistol cartridges hitting the guy. Really just don't think that any type of first aid would have made a difference for this guy. But let's talk about medical stuff. And before I get into medical stuff, I kind of want to go back to this rifle stuff again. So rifles are hella devastating, and they will go through soft armor really easy. Now, the most common guns used by criminals are handguns. So that is what officers' vests are rated to be able to stop. Level 3A stops, little 22 and 9mm, 40 cal, 10 millimeter, 45, 38, 357, 44 Magnum. It can even stop buckshot and slug from a shotgun. And it does this well. A rifle cartridge, on the other hand, is going to go straight through it like a warm knife through warm butter. There is no slowing down a rifle cartridge when it comes to soft armor. There is an emerging trend with AR pistols and AK pistols. And I've talked about this before in some other videos, namely when you see a suspect with an AK pistol or AR pistol. Although those are, by definition of ATF, a pistol, they're really rifles, right? Like, you take an AR-15, and just because you cut the barrel down to a certain length and you put this, you don't even have a stock on it, and you want to call it a pistol, like that's a loophole short-barreled rifle. Now, before I say any more, I think the ATF laws are dumb. I think they're bullshit. I think, the National Firearms Act is bullshit and needs to be repealed. If you want to own a belt-fed machine gun, then damn it, you should be able to own a belt-fed machine gun without having to pay thousands of dollars for one, because there's only so many left on the registry. So I'm not being anti-gun when I say that AR pistols are a loophole short-barreled rifle. But let's be realistic. They fucking are, all right? And these are becoming very popular with the street thugs because their favorite rappers have them in rap videos, you know. They got the Choppa in the video, you know, little Draco. And those are rifle cartridges. Those will go through vests super fast, super easy. And it will defeat officers' armor. Most officers' armor that they use, because the majority of the police in this country use soft armor panels. Now, there are some agencies out there where they wear plate carriers. There's not a whole lot of them that do that, but the rifle cartridges that you see with the AR pistols and the AKs or AK pistols, those go through armor super fast, super easy. And with that being said, I foresee in the future armor manufacturers creating better rifle rated soft armor to be very similar to what Safe Life Defense currently offers with their FRAS product, their FRAS, Flexible Rifle Armor System. So this is armor that is flexible like soft armor, but is rated to stop rifle cartridges. I see other companies eventually producing products very similar to that, and those becoming more popular with law enforcement, because plates, although they're effective at stopping rifles, they're bulky. Like, they're not comfortable, especially if you got ceramic. They're kind of heavy. If you go with the poly plates, of course, they're more expensive, but they're a lot more comfortable. They don't weigh a whole lot. But you also got that bulk factor involved. Like, they're kind of thick. And when you look at it in the sense that it's just a front plate and a back plate, those plates don't cover a whole lot like a soft vest does. A soft vest will wrap all the way around you. Plates, they're, you know, kind of small, and they just directly to the front and directly to the back. So obviously I can see why some agencies aren't very quick to want to jump to issuing plates to their officers, for that fact and the fact that they're expensive. If you go with the poly route, and if you want to save money and go ceramic, they're kind of heavy. And they're just not comfortable to carry for a long period of time. So that's why I see armor manufacturers, or foresee armor manufacturers, developing armor like the Safe Life FRAS vests. And although rifles like this are not very common, the AR pistols and AK pistols are more common. And if more and more officers are utilizing armor that can defeat AK pistols and AR pistols, then they're going to have a pretty good chance of stopping at least one round from a rifle like this. Now, 7.62 by 5.54R is, it's a hell of a round. It packs quite a punch. And so you would have to have, obviously, armor that could be rated to be able to stop that. And it's only going to be able to take one hit, versus something that's multi-hit like 5.56. Plates and armor can be able to stop multiple 5.56 rounds, but when you start getting into some of this really big, fast-moving, heavy stuff, it might be only rated to stop one round before it fails. So doing a quick search, Safe Life Defense, so they do have that flexible rifle armor system, and it says it's rated for rifle protection up to 308 and 7.62 by 54R. Now there might be some caveats to that, like it can only take one in one little area. But I'd have to look at spec sheets and stuff like that and testing to get a better idea of what it's truly capable of. But yeah, not going to read all that. But yeah, so like I said, AK pistols and AR pistols are an emerging trend. They're out on the streets more and more often. So we have to reflect what we wear when it comes to what is common on the street. And it's still common to find handguns on the street. That is the most common threat. But there's more and more rifle cartridge kind of weapons floating around out there. Enough to the point where I think it's time for agencies to start looking at how they should protect their officers against rifle fire. But as I said earlier when I talked about firearms training, there's a budget issue with that. A lot of agencies are poor and they can't afford it. A lot of them have to get stuff on grants. Medical stuff. So let's talk about medical. So if this guy had managed to get a round off and hit one of the officers, it's going to be a devastating hit. It is. So you're going to need medical gear right there, and you're going to need to know medical knowledge and have had training and practice with that equipment. If one of these officers took a hit from this round and none of them have had medical equipment with them and they had to wait for an ambulance to get there, then, depending on where they got shot at, they would likely die either before the ambulance got there or because they've lost too much blood waiting on the ambulance. Then on the way to the hospital they die, or they die once they get to the hospital. And also depending on, where they could have got hit, they could have instantly died where they stand, and there's no amount of medical equipment or knowledge or anything that's going to save you. So, but, assuming, he hit them in an area where, it could be a survivable wound, pre-hospital treatment being applied quickly is going to be the determining factor in whether or not a person has a higher chance of survival. So in pre-hospital care, there's a couple terms that's used to kind of talk about the time frame involved in getting people care, and it equates to them having a higher chance of survival. The first is Platinum 10. So the Platinum 10 is within the first 10 minutes. If you can provide pre-hospital care to a person within 10 minutes of their traumatic injury, you can increase their chances of survival by X amount percent. I don't remember what the numbers are. But that Platinum 10 can make a huge difference for some people. The golden hour is another term that's used. If you can get person pre-hospital treatment and get them to a hospital within an hour, then you increase their chances of survival by X amount of percent. And again, I don't remember those numbers. The quicker you can give a person pre-hospital care, the better. When it comes to gunfights, when you call an ambulance, they're not driving right up to the scene. They're not going to pull that big bus in there and be like, all right, where's the victim? Who got shot? No. That shit only happens in movies. They're going to park several blocks down the road, and they're going to wait there until the police say it is safe to come to the scene. And for them to even get several blocks away, it's probably going to take them 5 to 7 minutes to even get to that point. So if you've got someone who's been shot and it takes 7 minutes for an ambulance to even start to get into the area, and then you call for the scene being cleared and it's safe for them to approach, going through your dispatch, and then that dispatch having to call the ambulance service and saying, hey, officers say it's clear, and then that dispatcher radioing to the ambulance, hey, it's clear for y'all to go, and then their drive time, driving a couple blocks down and weaving in through traffic or getting around cop cars, getting there, parking, getting out, grabbing their shit and getting to them. That's 10 minutes right there, most likely. So you done lost your Platinum 10. And if you got a femoral hit, well, you can bleed out in 90 seconds. You're 4 times dead by the time an ambulance gets to you. So you have to carry medical gear on you. If you're going to carry a gun on a daily basis, then that means you should recognize the fact that you could be involved in a gunfight. And that means that bullets go both directions. And so you should recognize the fact that you could be shot. One of your partners could be shot. One of your family members could be shot. If you're an armed citizen and you have the mindset of carrying a gun because waiting on the police to get there takes too damn long, then that should also be applied to medical gear. Like, it should easily transfer over. You should carry medical gear because it takes too long for an ambulance to get there. If you're the police or you're security and you have the mindset of, well, we'll just call 911, we'll get the ambulance here, we'll get the fire truck here, they'll get here in time, we're in the city, you're wrong. That is the wrong mindset to have. It takes too long for an ambulance to respond in a lot of cases. Especially if you're a deputy or a trooper. Shit. It could be 30 minutes before an ambulance gets to where you're at if you're all the way out in the middle of nowhere. It is imperative that you carry medical gear on you. No matter if you're dab smack in the middle of the city, or you're a trooper and you're out in the middle of nowhere in BFE, you need to carry medical gear on you. And I can't stress that enough. It has to be on you. You cannot rely on it being in the car, because you may not be anywhere near your car when you need it. You might not be able to get to your car because someone could have stolen it, someone could have set it on fire, you could be pinned down by gunfire and unable to get to it. You could have chased someone all the way through the woods or down the street, and you're several blocks away, you're 300 yards away, whatever. Like, you could be super far away from that car, and the situation, the way it is, you just can't get back to it. And if you're going to keep your medical gear in the car and you can't get back to that car, you might as well have medical gear in a lockbox in China, because that's about as good as that's going to do you. So you have to have medical gear on you. It can be easy to carry medical gear on you. You can have a medical ankle holster with some very basic equipment in it, and it doesn't print. It doesn't bulge a whole lot at all. If you wear an ankle holster on a regular basis, you can carry a medical ankle holster on a regular basis. It doesn't feel any different. It doesn't print. It doesn't weigh a whole lot. It's super easy. If your uniform consists of cargo pants, you could very easily stuff some stuff into your cargo pant. You could put a med kit in there. If you have an outer vest that has pouches on it, or the ability to put a bunch of pouches on it, you can very easily put a medical pouch on there. You can, at very bare minimum, carry a tourniquet on your duty belt. There's a company that makes a little plastic holster that goes on your duty belt that will very easily accept a tourniquet. Super, super simple, easy to have on you at bare minimum. So there's really no excuse on why you're not carrying medical gear. And yes, it is expensive, but it is a life-saving piece of equipment. And if your agency or your company doesn't provide that to you, then it's on you to get that life-saving equipment. You probably already spend your own money on different things for work to make work easier for you. You should just go ahead and spend some money and get at least, at bare minimum, a tourniquet. It's a life-saving piece of equipment. The medical gear is one thing, the knowledge is another. So the two have to go hand in hand, just like with firearms. You know, you just can't give someone a gun and tell them to go forth and do police or security work or go protect themselves as an armed citizen. There has to be some type of training involved with that. They have to know how to use the damn thing. Same with medical gear. You got to know how to use it in order for it to be used effectively to save a life. There's other equipment that can be carried that you might not necessarily know how to use, but other people might know how to use, and it's a very important piece of equipment. Something like a decompression needle. And for the blowout kits or IFAKs that are sold commercially to regular people and they happen to include something like a decompression needle, there are some people who gripe about that and say, oh, you shouldn't carry that. You're not trained on how to use it. You don't know how to use that. So, doesn't mean that someone else on the scene wouldn't know how to use it. There could be an off-duty doctor, an off-duty medic, or an off-duty nurse who wants to come help you, and they might know how to use it. And if they've got it, great. Because if the conditions are present that dictate the need for a decompression needle, you want that decompression needle now, not 30 minutes later. You want it now. So stuff like that, you can still get that stuff. Even though you don't know how to use it, someone might. Medical gear needs to be carried on you. So that's what I call first line medical gear. And that gear needs to be used for you, your partner, or your family, no one else. And the only time that you should ever use your only tourniquet that you carry on you on someone else is if it's A, a partner, or B, your family. Then anyone else, it needs to be the conditions that the scene is 110% secure. Meaning you got a fucking platoon of officers there securing the scene. And you're 110% sure that there is no more fighting to be had. Because if you take your only tourniquet and you put it on the bad guy after you shot him, and his buddy comes around the corner and is pissed off that you shot his friend, he starts shooting at you, and you get hit or your partner gets hit, and now you need a tourniquet, but that was your only tourniquet, and you put it on the bad guy. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to take that tourniquet off the bad guy and put it on yourself or put it on your partner? Not likely. So that's why I say first line medical gear is for you, your partners, and family, no one else. Unless you're 110% sure there's no more fighting to be had and there's a whole freaking platoon of cops there securing the scene, making sure that there is no more fighting to be had. And if there is, it's going to be solved super quick. Other than that, the only real true exception to that, even if there is more fighting to be had and the scene's not secure, I would utilize that kind of stuff on a kid. Because a kid doesn't have the same opportunities as you or I. They don't have a job to go make money to pay for something like a tourniquet and then to get the training for the tourniquet. So they're at that kind of disadvantage. Like, they just don't have those opportunities to do that. Adults, on the other hand, they have those opportunities. Lots of adults just so happen to neglect to take on those opportunities. They don't go buy their own stuff. They don't do their own training. They have the same opportunities as me and you, but they choose not to. So, tough shit. You should have, been better prepared. I'm gonna save it for me, unless it's for my family or one of my coworkers, or for me. But other than that, kids, without a doubt, I'd give my only medical gear up to save a kid if there was still more fighting to be had and there was a risk that I could be hurt. That's kind of a no-brainer. But anyone else, nope. Sorry, you should have been better prepared. Unless it's, of course, partner or something, or family. Supplemental medical gear. So that's what I call second line medical gear. So first line medical gear is what you carry on you. Second line medical gear is what you keep in the car. The extra stuff to be able to supplement what you have on you and what you've used. Or your second line gear can be its own standalone gear to be able to use on everyone else. Like the bad guy you just shot. Like, your second line gear can be used on that person when it's safe to do so. Not much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.